one of the most glorious horror game series, filled with jump scares and addictive third-person shooter gameplay. Yes, we are talking about Dead Space series. First of all, this episode of DarshD Memories was requested by one of my best friends, The so please check his channel out. So like I said in my Resident Evil and Silent Hill DarshD Memories episode, I became a horror fan thanks to Resident Evil 4. You can say I'm a horror addict now. So my dad knew that, and when I was a PS2 gamer, I saw lots of screenshots featuring Dead Space, and I really liked it. So my dad bought Dead Space 1 as a gift for me, and when I got Dead Space 1, I was really addicted to it. I liked the sci-fi theme of it. It was like the Pitch Black, the sci-fi movie, and it was Resident Evil 4 in space. And then after a few years, my dad was a Dead Space fan as well, and he got Dead Space 2 because the cover looked awesome. And the thing I like about Dead Space 2 is that it has paid homage to old horror games such as Resident Evil 3 and Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3 by adding the hardcore mode where you only have like 3 game saves. So you have to plan your gameplays. So you have to have 3 or 4 hours of sessions 4 times. Like one session and then save, then another session, then save, then your last save session, and then without saving you have to beat the game. So I think that's kind of homage to old survival horror games, and like me, many horror fans really liked that feature of Dead Space 2. Another thing I like about Dead Space 2 is the fact that it has made Isaac the focus of the series. I think that he was kind of neglected in the first game, and he deserved the limelight because, in my opinion, Isaac Clarke is a great depressed character with lots of trouble to deal with. And obviously the gameplay of Dead Space 2 was more refined than Dead Space 1, and that's the reason why I think Dead Space 2 is the best Dead Space title out of all, because it has a perfect balance of horror and action, and the gameplay is not as annoying as Dead Space 1. Then the Dead Space 3 came out, and it refined the gameplay even more. It made it more addictive. It added some RPG Borderlands like elements, weapon crafting, and the co-op. Now the co-op is really fun. Now let me tell you about my best Dead Space memories. Now the first one would be the similarities between Dead Space 1 and the Resident Evil 4. Now that's the reason why I got Dead Space 1, and that's the reason why many people got Dead Space 1, and that's the reason why many people are fans of Dead Space series. So many Resident Evil fans, especially Resident Evil 4 fans, thought that Dead Space 1 is like Resident Evil 4 in space, and I agree with them, because the third-person camera in Dead Space 1 and some mini-games like the shooting gallery of Dead Space 1, etc. features are so similar to Resident Evil 4. And not to mention, the way this game was marketed was so similar to Resident Evil 4, more like survival action. So I think that taking inspiration from one of the best survival action games was a good idea. Now the second best memory is shared by many people. The addictive yet disturbing limb dismemberment gameplay of the Dead Space series. Everyone agrees that the gameplay is unique, disturbing, and very, very violent, very gory, lots of blood all around the place. Many people hate that gameplay because it drops so much blood on ground, so that it's like, yuck. The third awesome memory is obviously the co-op of Dead Space 3. I had lots of great bro-up moments on Dead Space 3 with my friend Eric, and lots of randoms. So yeah, the co-op was a really great idea, better than the multiplayer of Dead Space 2. Another awesome memory is mini games. Some were fun, like a space zero gravity basketball, and the shooting gallery that reminded me of Resident Evil 4 shooting gallery. But then there are some painful memories like Don't Get Cocky Kid achievement, which was really hard to achieve, but I finally did it and I got my platinum. And my fifth memory would be the zero gravity levels of Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. Dead Space 2 made the Dead Space 1 squirrel-like, jumping zero gravity levels more fluid and added the levitation. Then Dead Space 3 took it to the next level and gave us the full freedom of zero gravity. You have open world space levels, space explorations in Dead Space 3, and that's probably one of the best things about Dead Space 3, and that reason is enough to buy a Dead Space 3 copy. So I think that EA did lots of innovative things with Dead Space series, including the zero gravity, the dismemberment, and the unique story of the engineer Isaac Clarke. And in my opinion, Dead Space series is always close to every horror gamer's heart. And I hope that the next Dead Space game is more like Dead Space 2 and it focuses more on, the survival action instead of being more action oriented. So in the end, I wish to say that Dead Space series needs to survive. The Dead Space series needs to continue to exist because it is a unique modern survival action game. It could become a survival horror game if they try hard enough, like they did with the hardcore mode of Dead Space 2. So I hope that Dead Space 4 becomes probably the best game in the series. So I wish to thank you, Atwell, for suggesting this episode. I was so eager to do this episode, so thank you, mate. And I wish to thank you for watching this video. I am open to suggestions and criticism. So please comment below to request a future episode, to give me suggestions and criticize my work. Please check out my other DarshD Memories episode featuring Resident Evil series, Silent Hill series, and Siren series. This is DarshD signing off. If you want a fun survival action gameplay with lots of great moments, you can't go wrong with Dead Space series. Thank you for watching.